Welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and I am absolutely pumped to have you with us today as we dive deep into stories that are shaping the future of manufacturing. Before we kick off, don't forget to check us out at themfgconnector.com for all the latest episodes, our blog, and so many other resources. And hey, we're also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, so follow us and stay in the loop. Plus, if you're a fan of innovative solutions in manufacturing, be sure to check out our other show, The Manufacturing Connector, on YouTube. That show is packed with all the cool, cutting-edge solutions you have been searching for. Now, folks, get ready because today's episode is going to be one for the books. Our guest is someone who's shaking up the industry with a passion for collaborative working cultures and a thesis that's sure to make you stop and think, what the fudge? Is this still how things work in manufacturing? That's right. I'm talking about Willemijn Schneyder, the CEO and co-founder of Swipe Guide. Willemijn has made it her mission to take the complexity out of work instructions and replace it with simplicity that frontline workers can truly benefit from. Since co-founding Swipe Guide in 2016, she's been on a journey to revolutionize the manufacturing industry by empowering workers with the tools and technology they need to succeed. But she's not stopping there. Willemijn is also a fierce advocate for diversity and inclusion, ensuring that her company thrives on the strength of diverse perspectives. With a background that spans consulting, teaching, and entrepreneurship, Willemijn is an innovator, entrepreneur, technologist, and positist who's using crowdsourced technology to solve real practical problems in manufacturing. She's a proud member of Women in Manufacturing and has earned recognition as an Inspiring 50 Deep Tech Award winner. But what really drives her is that burning question. Is this still how things work in manufacturing? A question that she's not afraid to challenge head on. So get ready to be inspired and maybe even a little fired up as we explore how Willemijn is pushing the boundaries of what's possible in manufacturing. It's going to be a conversation you won't want to miss. Let's dive in. Hello, Willemijn. Welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jim. I'm doing awesome. The way you just gave me an intro just fires me up. So thanks for that. Thanks for having me on the show. I look forward to hearing it now.
You're very welcome. This is our first time having a conversation. I've seen you all over the LinkedIn webs and all of that kind of fun stuff, but never met you virtually or in person. So this is really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's always so scary for me. Like, you've read everything about me, but I don't know you. So this is going to be a fun conversation. Can I interview you afterwards?
Absolutely.
Good.
We can take turns here. I am A-okay with that. So, Willemijn, before we got started, I asked you to help me with the pronunciation of your first name. And I loved the way you explained it. Can you share with us kind of the history of that name and how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So I'm born and raised in the Netherlands in a town of Noordwijk aan Zee. It's at the beach at the North Sea. And my parents named me officially with 3 first names. And one of them is Willemina. And Willemina is actually a name after our monarchy. So one of our former queens was called Willemina. And it's pretty common in the Netherlands in the age that I was born in the 70s to have a name in your first names like Wilhelm, Wilhelmina. That my name is derived after one of our queens, as my parents are big fans of the monarchy.
I love it. I love it. Tell us your story. Tell us the rest of your stories. How did you get on this journey in this space? And what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this question, right? Because I think part of how we are growing Swipe Guide is very much in my roots, in my DNA. So I was born and raised in a family. My dad is a mechanical engineer and a technical designer. My brother grew up to be a maintenance engineer, and my mom was a preschool kindergarten teacher. So I grew up in a family where at the breakfast table, at the dinner table, every conversation was about how machines run, how my dad was designing a drilling plant. Every conversation at the dinner table was technical, and I felt like an alien. I was a big fan of music. I played the clarinet as of a very young age. And I was, according to my mom, always on the go, hustling. So anyway, growing up, I think the red line that leads me to how we're building Swipe Guide is I couldn't digest that all of the assumptions that people have on others. So people that are feeling unseen or unheard or judged based upon assumptions. So throughout my work, before Swipe Guide, you can see I've always worked on leveling the playing field. So before Swipe Guide, I worked on a fintech solution that was leveling the playing field of financial knowledge, so to say. And a big driver for us when we started Swipe Guide was to bring simplicity in a world with a lot of assumed complexity. I can still remember the quotes of my dad saying, no, it's way more complex than this. And having studied behavioral design, looking into the neurosciences, we all know that our brain wants simplicity, right? So eventually, when we started working on the thesis of why does this still work the way that it does? And it started with technical documentation. Me and my co-founder were looking into instructions, user manuals. And as you can look into our history, we first launched as a platform to digitize user manuals. But the way that we built the solution was really radically different. A couple of things that we found were essential to solve before launching our product in its beta was everybody likes simplicity, right? We don't want to make all of these decisions. So how can we design a software solution that takes all of that decisions for you, where you simply fill out the knowledge that you hold into a very rigid format? So we take all of that, I would say, instructional design thinking out of you. We put that in the software platform. And by doing so, we said it has to be very collaborative because, I know something about how this process goes, but then somebody else also knows a bit. And together we can make a stronger instruction. So as we launched the product in 2017, we found that by making it available to the market that found us was the manufacturing industry. That was not intentionally from the beginning. What from the beginning was essential to us as founders was we have to create a solution that is so super simple to use that everybody can do it without any training, without any knowledge of instructional design, because you just want to focus on getting a task done the right way.
Yeah.
So getting a task done the right way was our leading thesis in building Swipe Guide initial product. So what you can see today is Swipe Guide is a most easiest to use training solution, a frontline how-to platform that empowers every frontline worker to capture their knowledge, put it into a digital standard, and they make that standard available for the organization so that everybody can collaborate and together constantly improve that standard. So today, right, the manufacturing industry has found us. We've fully focused on that thesis because discovering more and more, I went back to my roots thinking, wow, does it still work this way, right? My breakfast conversations with my dad was, well, somebody new came in today and started telling us how to do things again. So I have to rework all of this. And my brother going into a apprenticeship, knowing a lot of things about how things should be done, but never getting asked, what do you know? And then I went onto factory floors. We all did as a founding team. We started working on factory floors. We did day internships. We observed, and we just thinking, wow, is that really how it still works? Whether it was the technology that people are working with, right? We are born and raised on mobile devices. Collaborative software is all around us. Think of how you order food, do your banking. But when a frontline worker steps into his work or her work at the start of the day, they have to put their phones into a locker and step back into the 80s, go to a board, pick up a paper, check in physically that they're there, pick up their shift and get to work. And they're not supposed to think for themselves. They need to execute as the tasks are on the list. And if they need help, they have to walk back maybe 20 minutes to get an instruction or get someone else to help them how to do their work better. And that has a lot of assumptions that we need to unpack, solve with technology and with a different culture in the manufacturing industry.
Absolutely.
I'll stop there because I could rant for hours.
No, I love it. And I want you to continue on, but I do have a couple of follow-up questions. You used a word in there, collaborative. Yep. And we all grew up knowing that we needed to compromise, whether it was with our brothers or sisters, our parents, our schoolmates, whatever that looked like, we had it ingrained in us that compromise was the answer. I now look back on that and I challenge that mindset, because to me, when we collaborate, everybody gets what they want, versus compromise where everybody has to give up something. So as we look at that collaborative mindset in this industry and moving forward, how can we make that shift to be more intentional? Because collaboration does take more intent than compromise. Compromise is least resistance. It's an easy path. But in order to collaborate, it takes a lot more intent. How can we change that mindset a little bit in this industry to become more collaborative overall?
Yeah, so I'll speak to two things. So first, let me explain how we did it within Swipe Guide, because in our
Perfect.
books, outside in is inside out. So the way that we build our team at Swipe Guide is also in a collaborative manner, right? So we have a very flat organization. There is a little hierarchy. We have self-managing teams that work on a piece of the business. So think working on the software or working with customers. And these teams have to indeed set their intentions and accept from the get-go that we work differently. So you're a fit with Swipe Guide if you fit with our cultural values and our way of working. And if you can, check your ego at the door and come into a conversation thinking, knowledge isn't power, right? The way we collaborate, that is what's going to drive things forward. Sharing knowledge,
Yes.
that's the power. And continuously improving that together and being able to take decisions as a group. That starts with putting in that foundation from the beginning. And we still have a very collaborative working culture at Swipe Guide. We crowdsource from the best crowd, which that's a saying within Swipe Guide. We crowdsource from the best crowd, which is our swipeys, our customers, our users. So our teams collaborate with each other. Yes, you have to set more intent. You have to lay the foundation from the beginning, and then you have to encounter into more conversational topics and cultural differences. Making that translations to what I've observed in my last 7 years in the manufacturing industry. So I don't pretend to know everything. I know these cultures and way of working have been grown over decades, and it's difficult to change. But it starts with forward-thinking leaders that are embracing this type of working environment, a collaborative working environment, and bit by bit change your foundation from the ground up. You can start with a small team and say, hey, we're going to run things a little differently here. We are going to put in place a collaborative working process where we encourage people to share your knowledge, right? Openly, where we welcome improvements, where we say there's not just one way to go, but hey, let's take one changeover process, make it very practical and simple. Capturing it together, putting it in a digital format, and then making sure people are encouraged to share those improvements. But then it's very important that people see their improvements are taken into account, because it starts with these small, simple, you're 1% better every day. And as people are experiencing that the way that they contribute and share to the business is being picked up on, it'll encourage them to do more. It's about recognition and being involved in shaping of the process. As the age of the workforce, like people that are working every day, is slowly getting younger, that is becoming more and more important, because these generations are driven by being recognized and seen on a very small scale level continuously, rather than a couple of big moments throughout a year.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think on that last part, everybody has a different reason for being in work, and typically older generations are there because of course they have to be, but also because they want to make an impact on the younger generation, and younger generation is trying to make their mark on the industry itself, right? So everybody's trying to make an impact. It's just, who are they trying to impact, I think is the difference between early and late stage of career. Would you agree?
Yes, and I think we're in this unique position where we can benefit of both. Everybody is like a human need, would like to see recognition. everybody loves being involved and being seen and heard. Those things are a core value to me personally in how we are building Swipe Guide, what you can see reflected in my company, but also the customers that we work with. And what the unique moment that we have is there's a tenured, seasoned group of workers that are going to leave our factory floors. They were born and raised in a different working environment, depending on paper and traditional processes. They have a body of wisdom to share. And then you have an incoming generation that is eager to learn. And we forget that. We don't look at those generations as eager to learn, but they are. Yeah. If we as a more seasoned group of workers open up to new formats, there's our most successful customers are the ones that are saying, wow, wisdom and body of knowledge, tech skills of a newer generation. If we pair these two up, it's going to be strong for both groups and for the business. And I think that is where we see value being added through Swipe Guide the most.
Yeah, I've seen companies start to set up mentorship programs in the manufacturing space, but it's not always designed or intended to be a mentorship of a newer person by an older person. What I've seen actually be more successful connecting this more seasoned person with this younger person, but the younger person mentoring the more seasoned person on how to use technology. And that way the company is then capturing that tribal knowledge that has existed with that more seasoned person. Are you seeing that on the Swipe Guide side?
That is specifically what we're talking about. We call it a digital apprenticeship for your tenured group.
Oh, I love that.
A digital apprenticeship. Right. So what you're then saying is you have a digital apprenticeship where your more seasoned tenured generation is learning from an incoming group of people to understand better how digital tools can enable you to do better in your everyday job. But at that same time, it opens up the relationship for newer workers or less tenured workers to learn the skill set that you only pick up on after years of work in a certain role. Yeah. Right? To be a senior maintenance technician, you need a different skill set than as you just enter the workforce. And both sides are then more able to open up their ears and their hearts to change. And that's where we see customers being most successful, by combining those two groups and as an organization saying, it's not one way or the other. It is about merging those two.
I love that. Willemijn, your background is very diverse, right? Correct. You've done marketing, you've done consulting, you were a lecturer, educator, lecturer. How did those roles in your past shape who you are as you now are leading Swipe Guide and being a leader in this space? How did those past roles shape who you are now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'll need to think on that for a second. I think looking in my past, you can see that I've held a lot of different roles. I have a wildly curious mindset. So I have a business degree, I have a master's in brand management, I did strategy degrees, then I tapped into behavioral design and the neuroscience. And I think the one thing that drives me most is, why are people behaving or acting in a certain way? And what can you use as leverage to change that for positive change? Right? That is what sits behind the psychology of marketing, the neuroscience, strategy. We're trying to find ways to change someone's behavior. When I look at my experiences in my different roles and how it has shaped me as a leader, I think I've seen a lot of different environments in my life that have either flourished the organization and the team collaboration or didn't. And what I take away from those environments and experiences is I wanted to build Swipe Guide differently. I wanted to be at an organization where you're seen and heard, no matter your degree or education or your background. I think my personal lifelong frustration is how judgmental we are as human beings at first sight and our inability to look beyond that. That has been with me from a very young age. I can't recount the number of times I got kicked out of class, whether it was high school, college, or university, because I stood up and said, you shouldn't be saying that or treating someone like this.
Really?
That's been, yeah, very much. I think I can count a couple of times I was kicked out within 5 minutes of class.
I love that. That I just now picture you. I think we're similar in age, born in the 70s. So I can just picture you in one of my high school settings, getting kicked out, that rebel,
Yep.
but just spoke her mind type mindset. I've got that
But
picture
mostly
in my
also
head.
like, even if it wasn't about me, if a teacher would say something about a student, wouldn't listen to the answer of the student, like being unheard, I would step up and say something. So that wasn't always very beneficial to me. But I can't deal very well with unfair situations, what my mind thinks of as very unfair. And as a leader, I've seen, as in my previous roles, I've seen a lot of situations where that has happened. And that's been a strong driver of how I personally wanted to build Swipe Guide. And I found that same state of mind with my co-founders, which is why we work so well together, which is knowledge isn't power, right? The way we collaborate is what's going to drive value. The way that we embrace everyone on the Swipe Guide team and hear for what they bring to the table, what's the skill set that they have, and not looking, we always say, look at the content of the box, not the wrapper it comes in. So when you apply for a job at Swipe Guide, I'd never know anyone's resume, for example. I don't know where you went to school, what your age is. We have an interesting conversation. You get tested against the skills of the role. We have people looking at, we call it the Swipeness fitness test. You get thrown into situations and conversations with anyone on the team for a Swipeness fitness test to see if you fit the values. And what I learned most, and it's so basic, treat people the way you want to be treated. And as soon as we let that and our values lead all of our business choices, that's when Swipe Guide also started to flourish. In the people that we work with, the customers that we have on board, the partnerships we have, the investors that we have, and that whole story of acting according to our own values is now paying us back. So one of the greatest examples I want to give, and I'm so thankful for that, is in the last year, we found, look, how come we're still, typing Excel sheets full of skills, right? So the whole skills management, skills matrix, how come our organizations are still using Excel? Why is that the backbone? Why do we spend 4 hours a day on that? And we're like, oh, that's a problem we want to solve, but we don't exactly know how. We just, again, see a lot of complexity. How can we simplify this? We called up a group of our customers and they said, yes, you're welcome in. Come to our floors, talk to our team, work with us. And we found a customer advisory group. We were working with a group of customers and all of our customers said, yes, we're in. And then, so we developed this together with customers, together with our users, and we got it out to the market. I was like, wow, right? That's different.
Well, and I love that. One of the most powerful things I've ever learned was that people actually truly like change, but they like change when they get to author it.
Correct. Yes.
Right? When it's forced on them, people hate change.
Yeah. But when they're involved and shaping it,
absolutely,
they love it.
Then they love it. Then their passion shines through, and they become those change advocates in organizations, within industries. And so that's a phenomenal approach that you all are taking there.
And in my book, I don't, sorry to interrupt you, but in my book, I don't see why that hasn't happened. And I that's my frustration observation in many roles. Like, why don't we simply go to the people who we're talking about, who this impacts and resolves, whether it wasn't, with Swipe Guide or any other job that I've held.
Yeah, I agree. I love that approach out of you guys.
But I have to say, I mean, it wasn't easy for Swipe Guide for us, right? When we went to market, we were this frontline focused collaborative platform for work instructions, digital standards, and collaborative standards. When we went to market, so when the market chose us and then we chose the market back, you focus on one market, right? So we simplified product roadmap design. But then when we're speaking with potential buyers, we were told in the first 4 years, where is your management controls? How can I control this? How can I control this? And we kept telling, you should curate it. You should be a navigator, but you shouldn't want to control this. You should have the checks and balances in place for compliance and EHS, but you shouldn't want to control everything. You should have control in place. So the first couple of years, you called it pushing water up the hill. I'm Dutch, so I don't know. I'm not familiar with the saying, but I think it's like I'm well aware with water. Pushing water up a hill is very difficult. So I get that. So I think to us, it felt like pushing water up the hill too.
Yeah.
But we're said, this is critical to our DNA. We're not going to change that. We're not going to build it. We'll partner with companies that are great in control if you want it, but we're here for the frontline workforce. We're here for your operators, your engineers, your technicians. And there's, with everybody in the market zigs, we zag. That's one of those sayings where I go, stick to our own base, right? Yeah. And eventually the market turns. And that's what we've seen in the last 2 years. The market is finally embracing. It's not top down. It's not just bottom up. You need to have a collaborative solution. You have simple and easy tools that don't frighten off workers, that empowers people to actually perform better, right? And that's going to lead to a better operation. That's going to lead to more efficiency, etc. But it's through the hearts and the heads of your frontline workers.
You're very passionate about values that include diversity, equity, inclusion, not just among the women in manufacturing, but other groups as well. How do you think that those values contribute to a stronger and more innovative workforce in the manufacturing industry, in an industry that typically has been slow to adopt those values as well?
Yeah, so yes, the diversity inclusion is very core to me. It again ties back in making sure everyone's seen and heard for who they truly are, right?
Yeah.
It ties back into that. First of all, I want to recognize I've been raised with a lot of privilege myself, right? Highly educated white woman. Also coming from a country where in retrospect, I can see there's not a lot of diversity now that I live here in the US, right?
Sure.
So I think as a founder in technology, working in manufacturing software, I've come across my share of bias, right?
Yeah.
Being unseen or unheard because of bias. Let's put it simple. Technology that we build and put to anyone out there in the market will be a reflection of the people that built it. To make sure that you're tailoring to every potential worker out there, you want to make sure that you take a lot of different concepts into your perspective. We found that within Swipe Guide, incorporating a lot of different ways of thinking, like thinking hats, backgrounds, cultures, perspectives, that's when you start solving for more problems, right? You're thinking of things you can't think of if you're putting together 7 Willemijns, because we all have the same kind of thinking. You get challenged to different perspectives. And crowdsourcing allows a wide variety of people to contribute their knowledge, their ideas, and making sure you build a better product. It leads to faster problem solving, right? Mm-hmm. Having a diverse group leads to faster problem solving. It leads to a greater efficiency. And I think if I look at your question, like the manufacturing industry or the tech industry is slow to adopt, correct. Like you can't change the past. And the past is a legacy we have to deal with. Yeah. The only thing that we can do is take control over how we move forward and actively incorporate change there by creating ambassadors, by creating awareness, educating, and clearly stating the benefits of having a very diverse workforce. It actually, diverse teams create a 25% higher ROI on company returns, as research shows. Yeah. So that is a hard benefit of the diversity, except from any societal long-term benefit that you can see in just every aspect, how we educate, how we teach, how attractive jobs are for certain people. Right. It just starts with tiny little nudges, and 1,000 nudges in, and you'll see better change.
And let's go back. I love that statistic of 25%, because if you have all perspectives as your own, and mm-hmm. you and I talked before we recorded that about my journey and how I would go to these trade shows and conferences and look around, and it I represented everybody I saw, right? And so I've had to be more intentional about going out and finding guests that don't look like me. And so I want to talk about that intentionality and how you and Swipe Guide have been intentional in that journey. Because as we look at that younger generation that's coming in, those are aspects to them as well. They want to be in more diverse environments in whatever industry they're in. So talk to us about how you're implementing that and bringing those younger people in by using that kind of mentality.
Yeah, sure. So as I just said, for me, inside out is outside in. So what we are towards customers and users, what we have to be, what we are from founding start. What we first did in shaping the Swipe Guide team, right? We had a founding team, and I can honestly say, like, our founding team is half women and half men, 3 and 3.
I love it. Yeah.
I have a female CTO. I have a female growth leader. I have a male chief product officer, my co-founder Dan, and Tim and Nick. So it's also about the values that we shared. So we sat down together and said, intentionally, we want to do a couple of things differently. We want to make sure we hire the people that share our values, right? And have radically different mindsets to make us better. It's also one of our core values, always be learning. If you can't learn if you don't invite other and ways of thinking in. One of our core values is go positive, right? Think about what you can change and can control and can influence. Yeah. One of our core values is make users awesome, derived from the modern Agile manifesto that says your users are not just users, also your employees. It is how intentionally are you putting the person that receives your outcomes first in your line of thinking. It is sparing resources for better use. So we sat down and we identified our core values and what they meant to us. And then we said, look, if we want to build this software differently, we're also going to need different, a broad variety of people. Mm-hmm. So when we, for example, started with putting out jobs, we said, hey, it needs to be inclusive language, inclusive photography, inclusive interview process, right? Where we don't look at the resumes, but we look at skill sets. So we've put in a lot of different larger and small things in place to make sure we hire people that are adding value to what, the problems that Swipe Guide is trying to solve as a business and as a team.
I love it.
As we grew, right, at some point you have different people coming into the hiring process or in the company. We spend a lot of time on educating the team why we do what we do. We have 15 different nationalities at Swipe Guide. That leads to some communication challenges. So a lot of work that we do in our all hands meetings every 14 days is talk about them. It's just talk about them. And you talk about what's the difference between sending something on Slack and saying something out loud. It's clarifying assumptions. It's looking at the evidence. So really living that throughout the day-to-day. You identify something big and you make it small and practical in everyday language. So I just got out of our all hands, like our virtual town hall. And for example, one of the last things we do is we have shout outs to people. All of our core values are there. And every 14 days, we still run through them and we say, these are what they mean. And if you want to recognize someone, it'd be lovely if you can say why and how. And they all tie back into our core values.
And is that peer to peer? Or
that's
is that
peer-to-peer.
Leader to peer? Oh, no, that's awesome.
So one of my observation was, hey, we have, recognitions. Everybody can recognize everybody. That's not just management recognizing employees or the other ways around. It's just like peer to peer. But it's also just by simply sharing things that we miss out on. We call them swipe ups because we couldn't. I don't know if you can say fuck up. I said fudge up in my my thesis, but what the F, right?
Yeah.
Our F ups, the things that we mistake. Openly sharing my mistakes has led to everybody thinking, this is normal. I'm okay. People make mistakes. My famous mistake was saying yes to a speaking event, thinking it was the 10th of October. No, 5th of October. Got an invite for the week after. It was the 5th of May because the date formats in US are changed. And all of a sudden, I have to be in Chicago the next week to do a speaking event, right? So if I share that, it's leading by example. If I share that, and someone else makes a mistake, it's easier to share your mistakes. And by the way, if people are willing to share their mistakes and they do so as an organization, you catch mistakes when they're not so costly.
Absolutely.
So if you create a culture of continuous improvement, openly sharing what can be improved, but also learning from mistakes, and that's okay, your mistakes will be less costly.
I love that.
So these are ways that we incorporate that in our hearts in Swipe Guide. The one thing you, of course, hope as a team is that everybody feels and shares that reflection with you, right? So I always hope, I hope I'm as connected to everyone in my team as I think I am. And I constantly invite people to challenge me if there's a disconnect. But yeah, that's really our intent.
Your leadership style sounds very refreshing. If anybody's interested in working at Swipe Guide, how do they go about that process? Can they reach out to you directly? And what's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, sure. So we actually have a couple of vacancies up on our website, swipeguide.com. You can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, or you could simply go to our website, swipeguide.com, and click on our job openings. And what then happens is you'll get connected to Ben, our amazing head of people, and he will take it further with you.
Wonderful. I love it. You sound like an amazing leader, and I love everything from empowering people to feel like they can fail, talking about intentionality, to talking about sharing of knowledge, not hoarding of knowledge, and checking that ego at the door. I love everything that you've shared with us so far.
It comes with challenges, right? So it's not,
Sure.
I'm not trying to imply to our listeners that it's easy. It's hard because decision making is hard, but once you get that process going, it's beneficial. As a starting company, it's like people always say, right? You're jumping off the cliff while you're trying to assemble the plane. And that's true for building a company. And then at the same time, you're trying to change the way that you do decision making in the company. And there's ambiguity in that. So you have to be okay as a person, as a team, as anyone in the company with some ambiguity. You have to be able to ask your questions out loud.
Yeah.
And if you are in a traditional environment, that's hard. And I know it takes a lot of effort, and I've probably made a zillion mistakes along the way. But I think it can benefit every kind of organization.
Yeah. And that leads to the next question that I was formulating. Reflecting on this journey that you've been on, what are some key lessons that you've learned along the way that will continue to shape how you shape Swipe Guide and the teams that work for you?
One of the most valuable lessons I learned was in the last 2 years by my own coach. One of the things that has come up indeed is as you're growing and building a company, you're figuring out your way, right? You're jumping off that cliff. And then at the same time, you want to be a very collaborative environment. You want to involve people. There's two things to that. Sometimes a blank sheet is very scary. You like a little line around the edges. And then even though you want to be collaborative, you have to help people transition into that kind of environment. Not everybody is ready to be an advocate for themselves and to have that entrepreneurial mindset and to open up and own up to everything they want to say, especially as you're scaling with more people.
Sure.
And that leads to the insight, like I was taught, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's not my own. I have an amazing coach called Andy, and he taught me that. He goes like, being clear is kind. It is not authoritative. It's not hierarchy. It's simply being kind. And you can drive clarity and still be collaborative. That was a very valuable lesson that I've learned. And that has definitely driven change in the last couple of years at Swipe Guide. And by doing so, we actually flourish better. So we're still incredibly fully collaborative. Yeah. It's the mindset that changed for me personally, that I thought I was not being a collaborative work environment if I was too clear, and I wasn't actually. So that's been incredibly insightful. The other one is own it and just go, right? So I can't wait for the rest of the manufacturing industry to get onto our pace. Yeah. As we started Swipe Guide, and then there was COVID, and there was this whole market that wasn't ready, sticking to our true beliefs of how we innovate, has paid off. Sometimes you just need to run with an idea as far as you can and as fast as you can, and then wait for the market to catch up with you, which is what we're seeing right now. And the third learning I want to share is I never thought in a million years that how we started in 2017 by saying, this is our vision for how we want to build the product and the company together with customers, that it would get us to this stage so far that it's embraced, that the manufacturing industry is saying, yes, simplicity is what we need. We need simple technologies that guide people throughout their work, that it starts from, and that it now finally is about how can we empower people in their day-to-day. We went from 2017, how many bodies do we need on the shop floor? No, we need X, Y, and Z to, hold on, people are an essential part of change. It is not about automation and digital twins and more robots. It is about how we guide people in that change. And
I love it.
That's been such a valuable learning. As a person, as an individual, I think I'm amazed by the people I get exposed to. So like you, like others like everyone I get exposed to that is shaping a part of our journey at Swipe Guide. I feel so privileged by talking to everybody and getting invited to take a look in how things work on the inside and see what you can change for the better. That privilege is something I'm so grateful for. Being able to do that with this team and this company is a huge learning.
You can tell just by the words that you're using, but the passion and purpose and emotion that's in your voice, that you're a highly empathetic, emotionally intelligent person, Willemijn. And it's just, again, it's so refreshing to see in this industry. And I agree. I hope that the industry catches up with you and where Swipe Guide is headed. Where do you see this industry as a whole over the next 10 years? I mean, a lot of us look at that 5-year out mark. I want to go further than that because I'm tired of talking about 2030 and this, cliff of workers and skills gap. Where do you see us in 10 years?
All right. So first of all, we have to keep it real and practical, right? You can identify all sorts of complex problems, but whatever we want to do it has to impact my life, my work today, tomorrow, and next week, as that's what my line of thinking is when I work a next shift. So technology has to solve practical problems in a very simple way. Okay. And if we take that as a lens throughout the next couple of years, then what I hope the industry is going to pick up on, and I talk to two sides, technology and people. On the technology side, step by step, I see us over the next decade coming to technologies that'll guide the work on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis for anyone on the shop floor. I see complex tasks guided by technology. I see repetitive, simple, meaningless tasks slowly being automated where it makes sense, right? With the upcoming of AI technologies, that's a next level of taking complexity out, right? If you can combine data pools, business analytics with AI to take the decision making out and come with correct diagnosis, which is going to take years to get it accurately. Think one machine is complex and a lot of data. Think 200 factories with 20 machines. And you can think for yourself how long it's going to take for all of these technologies to be as effective as some of the technologies are today. And in that, one of the greatest examples I have is I visited an EV manufacturer in Belgium. And the case was if they wanted to get started with Swipe Guide for maintenance technicians, I get a guide through the floor and they have 1,000 robots. But 15% is always down. And then still a person needs to come in and fix the machine because eventually the robot is a machine.
Oh.
So we can talk automation and robots all we want, but it's still a machine. If it breaks down, you need someone to come and fix it. So over the next decade, what you're going to see is we're going to augment workers in a much better and more effective way with hardware, with technology. with the simple purpose of how to make sure the right person is doing the task first time right in the best way possible and in a collaborative manner. So 10 years from now, I think that's where we're going to be. On the people level, what I hope the industry is going to do is slowly but quickly as possible shift that mindset into, the skilled trade jobs are tremendous and satisfying role to work in. There is it doesn't make sense to look at higher or lower educated people like that. We lose that vocabulary, that we look at skill sets, that we get to train people on different skill sets, that we can, that we embrace that lifelong learning and this collaborative way of evolving together. And that I always say you have to throw in some bricks through the glasses to make change accelerate. And we have to throw in some bricks around diversity. We have to throw some bricks in around inclusivity. We have to throw some bricks at maybe management models in the manufacturing industry, to be honest, right? Maybe we just want to throw a couple of bricks in to force some changes. And then from there on, accept it's an evolution.
I love it. So, Willemijn, we've had a great conversation and want to know if there is one thing that you want the listeners to take away from this conversation, from your story, anything that we've discussed today. What would be that one thing?
I think there's a lot of people in their daily jobs that have stopped questioning because you've been told not to question. That's the first time I got kicked out of class was I kept asking why? And then someone said, you don't need to know that. It's like, that's not a good enough reason for me. I need to know everything, right? So as we get older and as we're adults, we're told and taught to stop thinking, just do. I want to encourage people to say thinking, start questioning, and know that if you question things and how they work enough, there's something that you can influence your change.
I love it. That's some powerful stuff. What haven't I asked you? Last question. What haven't I asked you that you want to share?
I don't know. I love this conversation. I had a lot of fun. I think I've got everything off my chest that I ever want to say.
This has been a fun one. I've really enjoyed it. I'm very grateful and thankful to have met you in this format.
I love this conversation as well. I love that there's a platform for cultural change.
Thank you. Folks, what an incredible conversation. Is one of those leaders that I would 100% go work for if I ever leave this world of what I do. We dove deep into her background, her journey. We found out that she is really interested in challenging that status quo in manufacturing. She has that thesis of what the fudge and is this still how we do things? And I think we all get very caught up in that idea of, well, that's how it's always been done. And Willemijn is actively trying to buck that status quo. And I love that. I love that for her. I love that for her teams. I love that for her customers. She obviously has a passion for collaborative working cultures, and she gave me a lot to think about when it comes to the future of this industry. So folks, if you're as fired up as I am from this conversation, I want you to take these insights and think about how you can contribute to the change we all want to see in this industry. It's all on us as individuals, as members of this industry to make that change happen. So before we wrap up, I want to remind you to check us out at themfgconnector.com for more episodes like this one. We're also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, so be sure to follow us there and see all of our latest updates. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, your colleagues, your grandma, your family members, anyone else who's passionate about making a difference, and specifically making a difference in the manufacturing industry. Don't forget to rate and review the show as well. It really helps us become noticed. It rockets us up every chart every time you rate and review the show. So your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring these amazing conversations. Folks, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries and creating a culture of innovation in manufacturing. Look forward to talking with you all again. Have a great day. Bye.